There are growing calls for the FDA to investigate the energy drink Prime. The drink is backed by popular content creators Logan Paul and KSI and is popular among kids. But now some are raising the alarm due to the high amount of caffeine in the drink. Prime contains more than double the caffeine of a can of Red Bull and 6 times more caffeine than a can of Coke. Joining me now to discuss this is clinical dietitian with Stanford Health, Leah Groppo. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to chat about this topic.
Yeah, well, starting off, what kind of side effects could this amount of caffeine have on kids and teens?
Yeah, when we're thinking about children, they tend to have a stronger reaction to caffeine. So we think about disrupted sleep. We're going to think about maybe irregular heartbeats. We're going to think about maybe increased anxiety, trouble even falling asleep and staying asleep, some GI side effects, things like that when we're getting into higher levels of caffeine.
So when you're talking about the kids that are drinking Prime, how young is too young when it comes to, buying this particular drink? Unfortunately, a lot of kids are abusing it and having multiple Prime drinks a day, and they're having, some bad side effects. But, my son was in the store yesterday. He's 7 years old. He said he wanted to buy a Prime drink, and I said, absolutely not. How old do you think is a safe range to maybe try having a little bit of caffeine?
Yeah, so caffeine really affects the central nervous system, and we tend to think about 12 and under, no milligrams of caffeine in their diet ideally, and then 12 and up, maybe a small amount. We find caffeine everywhere. Hot chocolate that people might get. We typically think about caffeine with coffee, but there's even a lot of other places to find caffeine. So I'd say 12 and under, really trying to aim for no caffeine in your child's diet, and 12 and up, maybe a moderate amount of caffeine, less than 50 to 100 milligrams, but not every day. And the goal is not to get caffeine, but if it were to happen, we're okay.
What are the potential long-term risks of drinking too much caffeine?
Yeah, I think in the research, what's really been focused on is sleep. So caffeine tends to disrupt sleep, especially in children. And when we get disrupted sleep and we get issues in that way, we have higher rates of anxiety and depression. Our brains are just not able to kind of refuel and be ready for the next day. So that is also a really big concern, having issues of sleep over time.
So I'm curious, when your child comes home, and I know this is happening a lot, you don't necessarily know everything that's going in your child's mouth or what they're drinking at school. Sometimes, you have friends that may bring one of these drinks to school, and maybe you know that your child has maybe had too much caffeine or too much of something like that. What can you do? What's kind of a good strategy? Is it drinking more water? How do you kind of try to get the caffeine out of their system?
This is just the best question. I can tell you're a mom, I'm a mom, and I think really the big question to ask is, how do we elicit behavior change with ourselves and also our children? So you definitely nailed it. We can tell kids no caffeine, no Prime energy drinks, and not buy them, but they're going out into the world. They probably have money to buy them at maybe a local bodega or something like that. So we don't have control over what our children do all the time. We want to actually have conversations with our children to think about what do they feel the pros of having Prime energy are versus the cons, and have a very honest and curious conversation, because just telling a child not to do something doesn't help them to instill that same behavior when they're not with you. So staying curious and trying to talk to your child maybe around sleep and other things that caffeine could be affecting their body, and see what they think about that. If they can identify changes in how they feel, I think that's what creates that sustainable change for a child.
Yeah, some great advice there. All right, Leah Groppo with Stanford Health, thank you so much.